Hey guys, thanks for coming and taking our time for this. Another training sessions directed mainly in operations. That's where my primary results are, but it can be applied to everything and all over the company. So, why do we do all this? So we can use our thinking to create results in the world, like that seem like magic, that seem like you're a superhero of some kind. So the first mental model I like to use is the worst case scenario thinking. So worst case scenario is where you've got a meteorite that's coming towards the Earth, and so this is the Earth, and you've got this meteorite coming towards the Earth. So that's a worst case scenario situation. So how do you come to that point where why is that applicable? So whenever you choose something, whenever you make a decision in your life, if you start get into a relationship, a business, whatever it may be, I think most people look at it and go, okay, what are the upsides, or what are the little things that can go wrong? What say you invest in a restaurant, you buy a restaurant, it's worth $500,000. You spend $1 million on the furnishings and all that kind of stuff. And what's your worst case scenario? Well, I might not get enough customers, this and that, whatever it may be, and I might be able to sell it, at maybe the price I spent on it. So that's looking at worst case scenario. But I think most people look at what is going to go well, or what are the little things that can go well. But I think we as a globe have now learned that worst case scenario can happen, which in this situation was COVID. That was total annihilation for everyone out there. So that's the worst case scenario type of thinking. Then you have so as a decision maker, as a leader, as you're making decisions on behalf of people, on behalf of your kids, on for yourself as well. You always have to remember people will come with lots of ideas towards you, but you got to really not get carried away with other people's mentalities and ways of thinking. You have to go, okay, in this situation, what is the worst case scenario in whatever context, whether it's what school you send your kids, what relationship you're getting into, what friendship, what business you're getting into, what job you're taking on. What is the worst case scenario? And if the worst case scenario were to happen, would I survive it? Is there a tomorrow? Would I make it through? And am I willing to pay the price for it as well? So that's a question you have to ask yourself. If the worst case scenario happens, am I willing to live with it? If I'm going to rob a bank, and the worst case scenario is go to jail, am I willing to live with it? That's your first question. And if you are willing to live with it, then it's okay to go ahead with it then in your world. And the next way of thinking I like to think about things is everything is a bit of a probability. So probability thinking is very much what you learn from poker, and it's a good mental framework. If you learn poker, you can also apply the strategies in poker to your real life as well. I think on a side note, what I have noticed is this, people have put a lot of emphasis over the last 100, 200 years on how to improve economics, business economics, how to be a good CEO, how to be a good manager, how to be a good this, that in the workplace. But it's very easy to see those same strategies and ideas work in every aspect of your life, whether it's teaching your kids a certain thing, whether it's dealing with your friendships, whether it's negotiating, which holiday house or big holiday you're going to organize, the way you're going to run the Christmas party. So, and even your internal decision making, what coffee you're going to get, what are you going to eat today. So those, if you, a CEO is designed to, they're taught to be a good decision maker on behalf of the company. But do realize that you are the CEO of your own life. You are the decision maker of your own life. So take all the concepts of life and just go, well, how can I use that mental framework, that way of thinking, to my own life? And I think that's where a lot of life should start. So because we've grown, the way we've grown up is from when we are younger, we're like, okay, we have to go to school, we have to achieve this thing, we have to be a good kid so we can get an iPad, so it's all about external, what do we do for the world so that we can meet our needs. And I think the downside of having that mentality is you never sort of get quiet and think, okay, what do I need? What do I want? What's really, instead of being carried away with the world, what does the world want? What's the world do? What does the world need from me? You've got to revert back to you've got to get quiet and think, okay, what do I want? People do that through journaling, meditation, quiet time, going for a walk, contemplation, whatever it may be. But I think that, that balance between, serving the world as best as you can, and then, serving yourself the best you can. And I think if you were to, this is another way of thinking, which is strategic, another way of thinking. So what would you choose first? Would you choose to serve the world first and then come back to what your needs are? Or would you see what your needs are and then serve the world first? So this is another way of thinking about things. So you've got two options. You've got, serving the world. That's the world. And then you've got serving yourself. So if you serve the world, what are the outcomes that you get? So if you serve the world, you may get all needs met of yours. Everything works out perfect. Or you may get carried away with the world. So if you get carried away with the world, with all sorts of stuff that may not lead you to a good path, how would you respond to that? Would you be happy, sad, whatever it may be, right? Most people, if you get carried away into the world and it doesn't go very well, and you've just been like, I've done all these things the world asked me, I did what the boss asked me, what the school asked me, my parents asked me, and you're carried away and you never really met your needs, you're going to be pretty regretful and upset. Otherwise, so in terms of pain, you're going to be like a 9 out of 10, almost 10 out of 10 in terms of regret. Over here, if you meet all the needs that you want in terms of happiness level, it might be a high level of happiness level. Let's look at, this is another way to make decisions. It's like decision tree. And then let's look at your other option, like a sliding door, like that movie where that lady went through, where she had two options, whether she got off the train or she stayed on the train. So it's the same thing, sliding doors type of thing. So over here, you've got yourself. So you're going to choose to self-reflect first. Wake up and go through your thing going, well, I've tried this in life, I didn't like it, I want to do this, I'm going to a job that I really don't think I feel good about, and so on and so on. So in this decision tree, you've got, if you were to follow yourself, so you've got, what are the two options for following yourself? So if you go towards yourself, you're very centered, you make some good decisions that meet your needs. So your fundamental needs that you're not aware of, because you've gone and focused on yourself first, it's gotten to a place where you've met your fundamental needs. Or the second option is, so if you do focus on yourself and then you go into the external world, so you've got your two options. So you meet your needs, or you may become overly self-centered. So if you were to become overly self-centered, then what is the downside of being overly self-centered, which is you can't work with the world, people don't want to deal with you, all that kind of stuff. So in terms of level of pain, what would you be looking at if you're self-centered. Maybe out of 10, you might start getting the world to dislike you, and your level of pain might be about 6 out of 10. And if you do meet all of your needs, because you've gone fundamentally inside and figure out what you want and you make good decisions and you've got to a good place in life, your level of happiness might be 10 out of 10. And then over here, you know, the first scenario was you focused on the world before you focused on yourself, and you get all your needs met, you might get a 10 out of 10 here. So you've got, these are quite equal. And then you get carried away with the world and everything, turns out terrible, and you're like, man, that was such a bad life. And then your pain level might be 10 out of 10. So if you look at the worst case scenarios of these two decisions, you realize that going into the world has led to the worst case scenario is worse than if you just focus on yourself. So that's another way to make decisions when it comes to this kind of stuff. That I find that helpful for almost everything. Like when people are talking to me and I can already see the outcome, my brain's already done this, and I'm like, why can't you guys see it? It's so simple. And I'm making that decision every 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and I'm tired of talking to people. Like every time I talk to someone and they can't see outcomes, and it's like, I can make a decision in 1 second. I've now got to spend 3 minutes to 4 minutes to explain it to you, and I still don't even know if you're going to understand it. And it's a very simple process. So yeah. And then what else do we have? And then you've got something called probability thinking, where everything is just, nothing is assured. You may be 100% betting on a horse. You may be 100% sure you're going to pass an exam. Everything, but in reality, nothing is assured. The alarm can go off and the exam hall floods and you don't get to do an exam. So probability thinking is, I think, it's a really great way to think about things. And I can give you a bit more of a complex answer for this one. And we're going to put a little video clip up of a movie that was really great on probability thinking and risk and all that kind of stuff. So for example, when someone takes on a venture, like whether you become a sports player, whether you buy a business, whether you have kids or whatever it may be. Sounds kind of harsh, but say, 200 years ago, you had kids, like you had these kids and the chances that the kid was not going to make it through their childhood was quite high. So people would have a lot of kids because just the probability that some of them will survive is higher. So how does that apply to business, to life, and everything else? The best example I have is, for example, if someone were to open up like a restaurant, and so a mum and dad go out there and they open up one restaurant, and everything seems right. The chances of this going well is going to be, very high. They're doing the work themselves, their wages are low, it's in a great spot, they've had 20 years experience. The chances are that 8 out of 10 chances out of 10, it's going to go well. And they're going to have this succeed. But there's 2 out of 10 chance that it may not succeed. So one of the fundamental reasons people get themselves into trouble, financial trouble, bankruptcy, all this kind of stuff, is they don't have the luxury to do what a person that is making probability decisions will make. So probability decisions look like this. The same person would not buy this one restaurant. They would buy 3 differentiated restaurants in different areas that do not have any linkages to each other. Let's, on the premise that these 2 people are good at restaurants. So the reason for that is, if this fails and this one this one has, say, a 7 out of 10 chance of passing, and this one has maybe a 8 out of 10 chance of passing. If one of these fail, then one of these two should be able to pay for the other ones. So when you make a decision, so just to add on to that, the profit margins. So when decision makers like Richard Branson, they buy all these businesses, one of the ways they look at it is, if one of my businesses fails, will these two pay for my losses? And they take it usually a bit further with saying that if both of them fail and I lose so much money and I resell what I can, I'm left with so much, does this one leftover business pay for these two failures? And more than likely, it will. So because they're not going to enter into a restaurant unless the restaurant has high profit margins. Because the profit margins is not only to pay for this restaurant and take some money away to live on and pay for profits and whatever, it's supposed to pay for these ones as well. This is one of the secrets to business that people don't notice. There's quite a few secrets out there, but this is one of the secrets that people just don't know. So how could you apply that to your life? I don't have any good examples off the top of my head, but I hope that would that you're able to apply that where, yeah, your decisions have to exponentially pay for the rest of them. Yeah. And that's pretty much the main strategic models that I think about when decision making. And to divert back to the first decision is worst case scenario thinking. So the first mental model we made was first case scenario. So we'll show you a video clip for about a minute. I think we'll probably show a video of this about a movie that we watched called Molly's Game. And it was an excellent example of worst case scenario wiping you out.
300,000 to you, sir.
Plus 200.
2.6 million. 3 million. She was right. I was extending credit, big numbers. And it's not like Harlan Eustace hadn't already put the fear of God into me. If I couldn't pay one time, that'd be the end of the game. I was the house. That's how quickly I made the decision. And just as quickly, B calculated 2% of the pot and took it off the table. That was it. I just taken a rake in violation of U.S. Criminal Code 1955.
So, and it really embeds all three strategic thinking. It was that clip had poker, had strategic thinking, had business thinking, had the whole thing all put together. So I'll try to give a visual of what that was about. So she owned like a business, and the business was turning over about $2 million a night. And each person on that table was putting down $200,000 each. And in that ladies' game. So, and there was 10 players. And so as the money was being turned over between the players, she would get a certain percentage, a certain cut of that money. So from that 2 million, she was getting maybe 2 or 3%. So she would walk away with, 2 or 3%. So I think it was like about 2,000 times 10. She was walking away with about $40,000 a night, approximately. It really doesn't matter what this figure is, but of the 2 million, she was earning $40,000 a night. And it was very impressive. She'd pay her waiters $2,000 each, which is 10 times minimum wage. She'd pay herself $20,000 and walk away. I'm just making up figures now, but that was the general premise of this thing. So again, they have 10 players, $200,000 each. on the table, and she was walking away with about $40,000 profit per night. So it's a good profit. You work 10 nights, I don't know, it's like $400,000. But she had a fundamental flaw. It was the worst case scenario. She had not really taken that into consideration. So her worst case scenario was she was playing these games for a few weeks before one of her dealers, who was a probability thinker, showed her worst case scenario. And why this worst case scenario is very applicable to what your local plumbing group does and what the company does. So what's her worst case scenario was, say these players who put down, IOUs of $200,000 each, say one of them was not able to pay a certain amount of their money back. So they put down a deposit to play the game, was like 80 to 100, it was like 50,000, I think, 50K. And then as they're losing money, those players needed to top up. And so each player's table was worth 200K. And some players put in 10, 20, 50, and then they left the game. Some players put in more, blah, blah. But at the end of it, if one of the players had put down 50 and then lost 100 and then said, I don't have that money to pay you guys at the moment, the game is down $100,000. So at the end of the table, the end of the day, the game is finished. The winner needs that 100K in their pocket, and the game is down 100K. So Molly, has to fit that bill of 100K. So her profits from there are going to be around 20K. So where is she going to get the 100K from? So she now, to earn that money back, has to play just to break even, has to have 5 more nights of this game to go well. If they go perfectly well, she'll pay her staff 20, she'll take away 20, and she walks out with a profit. So it will take 5. From then on, she has to play 5 games to break even. But what if in between those 5 games, one of them goes a little bit bad and she loses 50K? Now she has to play more and more and more. So that's what being the house means. It means all responsibility. And why I would like the people in YLPG to understand the importance of the house is because we are the house. In the company that we run, we have contractors, we have employees, we have all sorts of stuff, but our liability is massive. Like, I wouldn't have believed it before we started into this. If one of the plumbers or staff members does something wrong on site and the house gets damaged, it falls back on us. A lot of times, insurance will cover so much, but then insurance will also put a certain amount back onto us as well. The liability of theft of the stuff around the place. But a more simplistic example is if YLPG, if we go and do a job for a client, say that's a job for a client, and it's worth say $40,000, and in 6 months' time, it's been paid, job's done, everything's all good, and in 6 months' time, the roof leaks, for example, and investigators, insurance, the authorities go there and check it and realize that we hadn't done it properly, even though it was a subcontractor that did it, and it had nothing to do with our staff doing it or anything like that. The subcontractor, who was also a separate and licensed company, when it comes down to responsibility, we still have that $40,000 responsibility under our company. So we are holding all thousands and thousands of risk jobs, and usually we'll ask for the goodwill of the subcontractor to go back and fix their damage. But if they can't afford it, they're injured, they're hurt, they're no longer working, they don't want to go back, they're saying it's not their fault, it falls back on us to go and fix that $40,000 damage. And when a roof leaks, you've got house damage, this and that, you know, the probabilities are high. And if we keep breaking the rules as a company, then the authorities or insurance company will stop dealing with us and pretty much ban us from working. So the liability for us is extremely high. So that's like us being the house. So when people say to us, you know, why is the price this? Why is it this? It's because we're putting aside a little bit of money to make sure that worst case scenarios happen, we're going to be okay. Just like in Molly's game, she started putting more money aside because she knew one day this table's going to explode. Not literally explode, but you know, it's going to go bad. Some guy's going to run off with the money, not pay their debt, and she's going to have this huge bill, phenomenal bill, of 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 to cover the table to keep her game going. We're exactly the same. We will damage and things will happen. It's a very high risk trade. No one wants to be part of something like what we do because of that. But if we can manage that risk as a company and do everything we can in a way that even with high risk, we can provide a great service and the business still runs, we're going to be great. We're going to be winners. That's one way, but also we have to put in quite a lot of money aside for those worst case scenarios when things go bad and where the contractors, people that have been paid to do the right thing, have not done the right thing. It ends up falling back on us. So I hope that makes sense. And yeah, that's it. Have a great day. Thank you.